In order to treat and fully overcome your chronic insomnia, especially if you're in your 40s and 50s, you've got to really become a lot more practically proactive about how your sleep behaves at this time of your life. Sleep and great quality sleep isn't that complex. It requires physical relaxation, physical health, emotional stability, as well as mental calmness. And your sleep and your insomnia dynamics will have different proportion of these three different things working in combination. So for one client, it might be more that their emotional stability is different. For another client, it might be that maybe their mental calmness isn't there. So there are many different combination of things that can actually create these insomnia situations depending on the client. So in today's video, what we're going to do is we're really going to look at how you can develop practical sleep skills that works with what your sleep is showing you. Now, if you haven't watched the previous video in this series, then my suggestion is that you go back to the beginning and you start there, because we really took one of these pieces at a time and really built a picture to get to this point now, where we can look at using the information you gathered about your sleep and building sleep skills around it so that you can support yourself in really overcoming your chronic insomnia. We don't want to be generalizing things here. This is really the best way to make sure that no matter what your sleep needs, you're able to put in place. General things will not take you to this good place of developing great quality sleep. And you already probably know this if you have tried a bunch of things, but they didn't deliver results for you. Now, before we go ahead and look at these sleep skills, one of the things I wanted to say is I know how difficult it can be to really do this work for yourself by yourself. I struggled with insomnia too, and back then there were no sleep coaches around. So once I figured out that there was nothing medically wrong with me, I actually had to do the work by myself. It took me longer, but I still managed to overcome my insomnia. So it's also possible for you. But if you're still not sure about what's working, what's not working, and how to even work through some of these things that I already shared with you, then you're very welcome to reach out and look at what some of my services are. I work with people in my sleep coaching practice on a daily basis and have done so for 10 years. So I know that some of these chronic insomnia cases can become too complex for you to really figure them out. And that's okay. But that's where you got to realize that instead of struggling for longer, it might be a better way forward to just simply work with someone so you can really recover and enjoy better quality sleep sooner. So if you're interested in any of my services, then you can check out the links below and get in touch. And I look forward to seeing which way we can work together. So let's come back to looking at how to create personalized sleep skills. So from the previous video, you already gathered a lot of different information. And naturally, I don't know what that information is. So we're really going to take a couple of client examples in this part of the video so I can show you what skill sets I would focus on depending on the client. Now, when it comes to sleep, we would look at different groups of sleep skills. So one group of sleep skill is very much about the self-awareness of knowing what your sleep is showing you. So normally I talk about sleep assessment and how to keep a sleep diary, how to keep actually learning from your sleep as you progress. So that's very much this first part of really becoming self-aware about the practicality of your own sleep. Then we look at how you can actually fall asleep easily. So if you're struggling with falling asleep easily, then that's the other group of sleep skills that you can focus on. Now, if you don't struggle to fall asleep, then that's not a problem. Then you would just move on to a different type of sleep skills group. Then we've got the second part of sleep, which is nighttime disturbances. So this is very much the sleep skills group where you either want to prevent yourself from waking up or you want to help yourself to be able to fall asleep in an easy way in the middle of the night. So again, that's a more sort of complex part of the sleep skills because we're dealing with two different things at the same time. Then what we have is the morning. So If you struggle to fall asleep or you wake up in the middle of the night, naturally you're going to end up not having great quality sleep across your night. So if you sort out some of those parts of your sleep, you might not actually have to work on this other part of sleep, which is all about making sure that you can extend your sleep and have good quality sleep as well. So this is this other sleep skills group where we really look at optimizing the length of sleep and the quality of your sleep so that it actually gives you all the energy you need in order to get through your days. Then there is another sleep skills group that is very much depending on the client. Some of the clients who struggle with more sort of sleep anxiousness type things, what I also do is look at their emotional scale. So how can you proactively bring down some of those emotions that are rising up either as you go to bed or in the middle of the night? That's again a very specific type of sleep skill group because it will only work for the clients that realize that emotions are high, whether or not it's part of their falling asleep or the nighttime waking. So, see, again, this is where all those puzzle pieces start to add together depending on what your experience is. And then another part, which I often deal with, and that's quite typical for my work, is how to bring down overactiveness in the mind, whether that's part of your falling asleep issues or your nighttime waking issues. So if you're more of that sort of thinker type and your mind is very active, then that's where we would actually work on some of those sleep skills to train the mind not to be active at the wrong time, which is your nighttime. So these are some of these sleep skill groups that I look at depending on the client. So when you look at your sleep, what are some of the things you've managed to actually practically see? If you're dealing with frustration, then what you would want to look at is how can you bring down your frustration proactively as a skill so that once you get into bed or once you reach your middle of the night, you're not dealing with that frustration. So this is what I mean by sleep skills, is proactively doing something in order to not have that outcome repeat over and over again. And the beauty of the body and the mind is that when you train some of these skills, that means they become unconscious and subconscious as well. So even if you're sleeping, those skills will be there. So it can actually mean that even before you become awake, they activate. So they prevent some of these things to rise up um, and actually prevent you from struggling from these things. Now, again, this is just a simple way to describe what sleep skills are, but one of the things I always say to clients is that you don't want to do too many things at the same time. What you want to do is you want to take one of these sleep skills. Let's say maybe you look at how to bring down frustration as you're not able to fall asleep at the beginning of your night. That's a very specific sleep skill that will work with that part of your sleep or your insomnia struggles. For another client, we might actually look at how they can deepen their sleep because maybe prior to working with me, they thought that they were a light sleeper. So again, these will be very different things depending on the client. So when it comes to sleep skills, I want you to write down 2 or 3 very specific things that are actually applicable to some of the things you found through your exploration of what your sleep shows from the previous video. Again, don't pick them out of thin air because that will not work because they won't be applicable to what's showing up. So this is where it's really important to become more curious about what your sleep is showing you because that's really the best way for you to move forward and really fully overcome your chronic insomnia so that you don't have to struggle with it again. Who you are as a person is something that you can adjust through some of these sleep skills. If you're more of a nervous type person, you can actually learn to stabilize your emotions and move forward in a different way. If you're more of a thinker type person, you can train the mind so that it doesn't really become so overly active at the wrong time of the day, which is the nighttime. Now we're going to continue building this picture, and in the next video, we're actually really going to look at how you bring everything together. And some of the mistakes that I see clients make, even once they have all this information. So we're really going to make sure that you can future proof your sleep, because if you don't put the right things in place, but then you don't continue supporting yourself in the future, then this is where unfortunately some of the times chronic insomnia can return. If you stop doing what helps you, then you might actually have what they call relapse. Now, I don't really call it as a relapse, because it's really just showing us that you perhaps haven't proactively worked with yourself in a better way. So we don't want to become again too judgmental or critical about, some of these things that maybe you have to practice a bit more um, than before you actually struggled with chronic insomnia. So thank you so much for watching. If you had value from this video, then hit the little like button below. I'm always curious to hear how some of these things I share with you has helped you. But look at sleep in a practical way. No matter what the complexity of your insomnia is, you can look at overcoming it through really working with yourself in a different way.